Hey guys, welcome back. Sorry I didn't upload yesterday. As I said in the previous video, things are changing in my life, and so it's been a period of reevaluation as to when I can get things done. We're back with Idoneth Deepkin today, talking about the deep places. The Idoneth Deepkin come from the fathomless depths. There, at the lowest reaches of the mortal realms, they have built secluded strongholds, great bastions that have grown to become elf nations. Uncharted by other races and utterly isolated, such deep places are full of both mystery and horror. As vast as the mortal realms are, there are few places above ground that have not felt at some point in their history the tread of intrepid explorers or marching armies seeking to plant flags and establish kingdoms. From the dark hearts of the wildest forests to the heavens above the clouds themselves, territories are claimed, lands cultivated, and resources mined. The oceans and seas of the realm, however, have largely resisted exploration. While the waves might be traveled by trade convoys and war fleets, what lies beneath the surface remains uncharted, its secrets inscrutable. Those who make their living upon the seas, such as sailors or fishermen, speak in awe of the beasts that breach the surface, or oddities that are pulled up from the depths. Air breathers who do submerge in the watery worlds below bring back astonishing tales. Coastal freedivers and beast-hunting scourge privateers return with reports of strange and terrible creatures. The rarely seen aquatic races, like the merwin or kelpdar, are known to go deeper still, although even they do not dare travel beyond the strata where the light of the sun still penetrates, however weakly. They speak with whispered horror of the depth, of the deeper twilight waters, and the ultimate blackness beneath, where the crushing pressures and near-freezing temperatures are filled with the most dreadful of underwater predators. Rumors abound about the depths, but it is known that there hunts the Krakegon, the Calypsar, Charybdis, and the Lurkenarth. What else prowls that forbidden zone is more speculation than fact, but it is a commonly held belief that even the fiercest predators of the upper levels of the oceans are prey to what lies beneath. When even the wolf-pack shoals of razor-fanged flens fins show signs of fear, fleeing from threats below, then truly does dread flow. It is into these depths that the ancestors of the Idoneth fled. In the short term, they sought to escape from Teclis's light of reason. But there was something more, something deeper. The Sithai sought escape from the horrors of their past, a racial memory of incarceration within the chaos god Slanesh that was buried within their very souls. And what better way to escape the Lord of Excess than to flee to a realm where so many of the senses became obsolete? In the blackest abyss, sight is useless, touch is rendered null by the chilling cold, and emotion is drowned out by the bleak emptiness. To survive the torment in their souls, the elves of old fled within the deepest recesses of their minds, locking out all stimuli, numbing themselves entirely. The closest physical approximation of such complete solitude was found only in the deepest, darkest of places imaginable. Sorry about that. This does not seem to have been edited particularly well. The first destination of the reborn elves was at the bottom of the Galus Ocean in the Realm of Light. There they discovered the whirlways, whirlpools that connected many of the other deepest places beneath the oceans, seas and lakes of the other mortal realms. Using the whirlways, the 6 distinct factions of the Sithai each struck out to establish their own independent kingdoms. The largest faction, they who called themselves the Ironrach, were to become the widest spread. They maintained a garrison at their original founding in Hish, but also used the whirlways to establish a capital, the glowing city of Priam, in Girin, and other lesser holds across each of the realms. It was they who made the most effort to maintain contact with their widely dispersed kin, those who would become the Domain, settled at the bottom of the Black Trough in the realm of beasts. There, a long scar runs along the seabed, descending miles down. The myths claim that it was created by the footfall of Gorkamorka when he waded into the waters to battle the father of Krakagon. The Domain built their sprawling city along the chasm's walls, learning to craft the living coral into shapes more pleasing to them. The most impulsive of the factions, the Fuethan, traveled to Akshi, finding a route at last to the vitriolic reaches of the Mordacious Sound. The most secluded of all were the Morphan. They haunt the bleached shorelines of Shiesh, raiding out from their capital to Mordreki at the base of the Great Quagmire. No matter where each group of elves settled, they were confronted with the same difficulties and forced to fight many battles. To begin with, the magics taught by Teclis were barely enough to allow them to survive beneath the waves. Those elves most gifted with magic, the Isharan, developed all manner of new spells and arcane lores. Those in the Coralus could shape coral and shell with song, and would become the builders of the Idoneth, while tidecasters learned to merge air and sea so that those with lungs might cohabit the same sphere as the guild with equal ease. Soul scryers learned how best to hunt that spark of life force that would enable the Namarti to survive. While few armies ever assailed the growing Idoneth cities, the threat from marine creatures was constant and severe. From swarms of gnawfish and lampreyacs to colossal monstrosities like the Gargadon or the 1,000-tentacled Scythilopod. The Idoneth quickly learned to defend themselves and their growing empires. At one time, the Sithai faced the extinction of their kind, yet after countless ebbs and flows of the tide, the Idoneth Deepkin were expanding. One of the original factions of the Awakened has disappeared into the gloom altogether, although it is unknown whether they are destroyed or simply gone, where none can track them. But the others remain and have themselves split, each spawning splinter factions of their own, such as the Nautilar, who built their city upon the back of a bottom-dwelling creature, and the Lochnath, spectral raiders out of the shadow realm of Ulgu. Across all realms, all types of water, from Arctic to volcanic, the descendants of the Sithai have established their own burgeoning kingdoms. The Unseen Menace. The Idoneth Deepkin rely not only upon their soul rating to survive, but also secrecy, for they need solitude like surface dwellers need air. For entire ages, the Idoneth Deepkin's isolation has been assured, yet a new era is dawning upon the mortal realms. To simply sustain their undersea empires, each enclave of the Idoneth Deepkin must secure a tremendous number of souls. However, in order for them to grow their kingdoms, even more are required. Although the first of the Idoneth struggled with the moral dilemma of wresting the life force from others, I guess I should be wresting the life force from others so that their own kind could live, such considerations have long since worn away. Although the Age of Chaos... I'm sorry, that one was my fault. All through the Age of Chaos and into the Age of Sigmar, the Idoneth have launched their raids, for it has become their very way of life. Over the millennia, the Idoneth have adapted their forces, battlefield tactics, and even their magic to not only perfect these raids, but to prevent others from discovering the truth behind them. They attack with speed and surprise, striking quickly from under the cover of their magically conjured ether seas. Yet these incursions are not the careless rampages of bloodthirsty savages, for the Idoneth are elves, and all their deeds are approached with the utmost skill and precision. Their efforts often require both military and arcane assets to work in perfect conjunction. While the depths are subject to constant assault from predatory creatures, they are not threatened by the nation-building activities of other empires, and are far removed from political intrigue or even well-meaning diplomacy. The Idoneth's craving for seclusion is regarded by the other races who know of their existence, not as aloofness, but obsessive isolationism. To preserve the secrecy of their kingdoms, the Deepkin would go to any lengths, and they frequently do. The Tidecasters of the Idoneth are masters of current and motion. Their spells can transport entire phalanxes across the oceans at speeds unimaginable to surface dwellers. With such ability to traverse great distances, the Idoneth can launch raids easily along any coastline. Using rivers and waterways, they can travel far inland. This means they can pick and choose their quarry, letting their soul scryers guide them towards the richest yields of souls. Most enclaves are careful not to overtax the same areas, and so the Idoneth's raids are often spaced out over several generations of their target's lifespans. The eldest amongst their prey might recall legends of nearby settlements left abandoned save for mysterious sleepers, or tall tales of sea monsters that once swam across the fields, but there are seldom any actual witnesses. That few members of other races gaze upon the Idoneth Deepkin and survive can be attributed to the prowess of the phalanxes and the efficiency of their raids, but there is also another factor. Surrounded by their ethereal sea, the spell-casting Isharan and the supernatural eidolons of Mathlan can harness the obliviating energies of the tide and the abyss. It is true that those whose souls are stolen fall into a comatose state, a slumber from which they never waken. Yet the remainder, terrified onlookers, keen-eyed night watchmen, or even warriors in the grips of battle fury, are entranced by the lulling sound of lapping waves, the tranquil whispers of rhythmic surf, and the siren call of the primordial sea. Those lucky enough to stir from their mystic stupor find they remember nothing. Even those wounded in the raid recall scant little of their attackers. Though the Idoneth are masters of clouding their victims' memories using the bewitching magic of the ocean deeps, their own history has taught them that some experiences are so horrifying that the mind does not need to be compelled to suppress them. Naught but myth. As the age of chaos dawned, the Idoneth felt more strongly than ever about maintaining their secrecy. Even other enclaves did not know the whereabouts of their distant kin, for each group met but rarely. Even those who attended the assembles, periodic gatherings of the leaders of each faction so that they might not wholly lose contact with each other, took pains to conceal their movements so that none might divine the locations of their strongholds. To other races and the growing forces of chaos, the invaders from the ocean were little more than a myth. The few who survived the raids and by chance avoided the memory-wiping magic of their attackers were reckoned madmen, and their warnings fell on deaf ears. Around the borders of the Idoneth's cities, the wreckage and waste resulting from their land raids begin to pile, so that each was encircled by a zone of sunken ships and the fish-picked bones of giant predators. These became another form of defense, for any cover upon the seabed soon became the hunting grounds of the voracious sea monsters that stalked the deeps. The Idoneth felt secure, but it would not last. The first few chinks in the era of solitude began with the return of an age-old nemesis. The Seekers of Slaanesh, wayward armies of demons and tainted mortals, roamed the lands and seas of the realms in search of their missing god. One such questing army sought traces of their patron in Ulgu, and chanced upon an Idoneth attack. Intrigued, the army's leader, the keeper of secrets known as Slish the Depraved, followed the elves and assailed them. At first, the demons were successful, but when an Eidolon of Mathlan was summoned, the Chaos forces were annihilated. Yet demons are immortal, and keepers of secrets often prove to be ill-named. Nigh on a century later, the gaunt summoners, seers and spellcasters of immense power in thrall to Archaon, began to follow strange threads of magic. Their unanswered questions led them to the true name of Slish the Depraved, and so the greater demon was brought out of banishment to stand before the summoner's master. Seeking still more information of what he suspected was an elusive foe of old, the Ever-Chosen commanded the Skaven Lords of Decay to plunder the oceans of the realms, to dredge their depths in search of these mysterious elves. Most of the interlopers were caught and destroyed by the vigilant Idoneth Deepkin, yet not all. So began a new era for the elves of the Abyss. It was a time of invasions, of carefully crafted ambushes awaiting them in seemingly peaceful coastal settlements. The hunters had once again become the hunted, and many eyes sought to peer into the watery world previously considered the haunt of nothing more than beasts. In a vicious cycle, the Idoneth Deepkin were forced to raid more often, for they needed to bolster their phalanxes and replace warriors that had been lost defending their empires. So were the Idoneth revealed at last to many of the other races of the mortal realms. To some, it was as if the myths of old had come alive. The stories of cold-eyed raiders who rose from the waters to prey upon them proved to be true. To others, it was simply confirmation of something they had long suspected. More importantly, it represented a chance to strike back against the raiders who had attacked them and then fled so quickly back to the impenetrable sea. With the age of Sigmar, a new era was dawning. The forces of order sought to negotiate with the Idoneth Deepkin, to count them amongst their growing civilizations, and to ally with them against the forces of chaos. However, their militant and isolationist views put them in frequent conflict with the races of the surface world, including other elven factions. The Idoneth are compelled to raid, and some enclaves see no difference in the life force of the Sylvaneth or Daughters of Cain to that of men or Uruks. Indeed, some enclaves far prefer it. Souls and their people's solitude are the only currency the Idoneth Deepkin care about, giving not a whit for money, gems, or diplomatic ties. So it is, at best, a fragile peace they hold with the forces of Sigmar and his allies. And that is where we are going to bring this video to a close. I'm sorry about a bit of noise at the beginning. I hope it's not too disruptive. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.